All right. I have with me a someone who I'm just meeting for the first time, and I'm super excited to speak with Bobby Tahouri, who's a composer for several video games, some of the really big video games. But the one I'm really excited to talk about is his most recent video game project, Marvel's Avengers, which I'm a huge Marvel fan. I've seen all the movies several times, and Bobby, I'm just super excited to ask you about what that was like scoring the game. So thank you so much to you for giving some time today to speak to the VGM Academy community. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good to be here.
I'm so pumped. So let's just first give a little bit of a general background. Like, how did you? So I read that you studied piano composition in school. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How did you enter like the professional world of composing after that? How did that like transition go? Because that seems to be a really tricky one for a lot of people.
Yeah. So right when I graduated from college, I immediately interned at a recording studio in Hollywood. That's sadly no longer here. But it was a great studio that at the time I didn't realize it, but every film composer and TV composer basically recorded or mixed their score there. Thomas Newman recorded there, Danny Elfman, John Williams went through there, like everybody, and I had no idea. I
Wow.
just knew that it was a recording studio and they worked on films. And I thought, okay, well, I'd love to intern at this place. And uh, a friend of my brother's worked at that studio. He was a studio manager. And so that's how I got in. He said, okay, you can work here, be an intern, be a runner, get coffee, fruit and bagels for all the clients, and you can start that way. So I did. And so that got me into the film music world, even though I was just a runner. But it was great to be just around musicians and composers and engineers, and just to see how it all worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then at the same time, I knew that I needed to meet other filmmakers and try to score student films, short films. And I did, but that for like 5 years off and on, I would meet various filmmakers and try to score their films. But at the same time, I would play in bands, and I played keyboards, and I figured, okay, I'll try to be a rock star first, and see
Nice.
how well that goes. And nothing happened there. But I think by the time I hit like 26, 27, I thought, okay, I need to take this seriously. So I cold emailed Jeff Zanelli at Remote Control. I just randomly picked his name on their website. I think at the time it was still called Media Ventures. I'm not sure. But I thought, okay, I need to just be an assistant to a composer. I want to try and find a mentor and learn the ropes. And thankfully, he wrote back saying, "Oh, I don't need anybody, but give me your resume. I'll keep your name and info on file." And then I think a couple of weeks later, he actually wrote back or called me and said, "Actually, I'm really busy and I do need someone to help. Come on over." So yeah, I met him. We got along, and I was started to assist him, and that's how I got my foot in the door.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, the I'm wondering, how do you think that those sorts of opportunities still exist for someone who's maybe not necessarily located smack dab in Hollywood? With things going so, being so much more digital now than they used to be, I know that there's still a lot centered around hubs like Los Angeles. Do you
Yeah.
think that there are still opportunities like that for people who are maybe in the Midwest, who are like, in a very rural part of, their country, wherever they are?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough, but now with COVID and everything being online, maybe it's easier now to just kind of do things remotely for other people. I mean, nothing beats face-to-face interaction in the same room, but we can't do that for a while now, it seems. But gosh,
Yeah.
you really do need to go to a hub of some sort, I think, where either video games, films, or TV shows are being made. I think that's important. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I hopefully after this, people will be more open to the idea of the remote. But again, it's really hard. You had a friend who got you that foot in the door, and I
Mhm.
think that those those feet in the door are still going to be, gotten by
Right.
those in-person connections. So it's tricky.
It is tricky.
Yeah.
But I don't know, things like this where we're talking right now, we're video chat, and it seems more normal. I'm taking more Zoom calls, and whereas 5 months ago, 6 months ago, I wouldn't have done that. And I feel more connected now to people to different clients and people that I'm meeting for work opportunities, and they're in different cities. So it could be a good thing in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. I feel kind of the same way. Like I did a live conference right after this all started, just because why not? Everything was getting canceled, and I ended up meeting a lot of composers I hadn't spoken to yet, including and now I'm meeting you, and I've met several people since then, and it's like way less abnormal, and it kind of makes me almost excited. Like, wow, I can't wait now that I've got these connections. I can't wait to like maybe one day get the opportunity to meet these people in person. That'll just make it even better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Marvel's Avengers, because I really want to talk about Marvel's Avengers.
Sure.
So, the number one question I'll get beaten up if I don't ask is, how did you end up on the project? Everyone always wants to know how people got the gig. How did you end up at the Marvel's Avengers helm?
Yeah, I had a relationship with Crystal Dynamics because I'd worked on Rise of the Tomb Raider, and we had a great time on that game. I had a great time working on it. It was a project, and I guess Crystal Dynamics, they thought that they could ask me to come on board again for their next project. I had no idea it was going to be Avengers. These game companies are really good with all the NDAs at keeping things under wraps. So
super sneaky.
Yeah. But yes, after I finished, Jack Grillo, the audio director at Crystal Dynamics, asked if I wanted to work on Marvel's Avengers. And I said, yes. Are you kidding me? So yeah, that was back in 2016.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long ago. I remember when the gameplay trailer came out. The gameplay trailer didn't come out just a couple of years ago, or maybe just even a year ago. I feel like it was maybe after Endgame or right around that time.
I think so, yeah.
So wow. So now, how long from like you come on board to you finishing the project? How long was that? Like, granted, there may be DLC stuff in the future, but like just the core shippable game from the get-go. How long did you work on that the entire time? Did you work on that up till shipping?
I think I've been working on it up until shipping. Well, I'm still working on it. Well, I guess I'm working on DLC content right now. But gosh, I think the game was supposed to come out last year and got pushed. But yeah, since 2016, I would work on it a couple months and then take a couple months off, couple weeks off, sometimes 3 months nonstop work. So there was just, there were breaks in between, but it's hard to say because it's been so long. I've been on this project for a really long time. It's all a blur.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, you also composed and arranged some for the film Iron Man back for the 2008 release of Iron Man. Which is, again, my inner fan is giddy at even the thought of that. And that was kind of like, I feel like that movie was sort of a superhero experiment in a lot of ways. They were really rolling the dice to see if the whole MCU thing would work. And now that this game, now by the time this game is coming out, you've got 2 decades almost of films and crazy fandom and all those things. How did you sort of like, did you synthesize that at all? Did you, did you try to consider the music from the films, or did you just sort of say, hey, this is its own thing, and I'm going to go off in my own direction and start from scratch building this world in this game?
Yeah, well, I was very much aware of the MCU films, but at the same time, I wanted to do my own thing. But I needed to make sure that this sounded like a Marvel score. So, of course, I couldn't help but be influenced by all the MCU films. And yeah, I got to help Ramin Djawadi on Iron Man back in 2008, and that was amazing, just to be in the room, and just watch that film for the first time. It's like, what? This is amazing. And I don't, gosh, that was a long time ago as well, but I don't think that working on that film influenced this game. Because so many Marvel films in the MCU have come out since Iron Man,
Yeah.
and now we're dealing with the Avengers and so many different characters. But my goal was to just make sure that this felt like a Marvel score, fun, thematic, and yeah, hopefully I did it justice.
Yeah, I mean, for what I've heard so far, I really like the sound.
Cool.
And one thing that I'm really excited to hear more of when more of the music becomes available is the difference. Like I imagine you had to do different character themes, and the gameplay for each character, from what I've seen, is it's fairly different. Especially like when you think of like a character like Iron Man, who's literally is almost like a flying gunner style of playing versus Thor, who's just beating people to hell with his hammer. So how did you approach getting different character themes where like the gameplay feels different, and then at the same time with that, like how did you manage to have cohesion across all of those different characters and their gameplay styles?
Yes, I wrote one Avengers theme or a suite that was, gosh, around 10 minutes long, 11 minutes long. And that basically covered the story arc of the game. I wrote this in the beginning when I just had a story Bible and knew what the game was about. It's going to be about. And I decided early on, okay, just create an Avengers theme that just it's an all-encompassing theme. And then how to deal with each character, just make sure that each superhero has either a sub-theme or a sound or a group of sounds that's just associated with that character. But that's able to also just fit within the Marvel's Avengers theme. So the simplest way to do that is just I have my theme and then I can just change the instrumentation if Iron Man appears or if Hulk appears or Kamala, and just change up the instrumentation. That's the easiest way to do it, to not make it so chaotic. I don't know, there's so many characters. It's tough. You don't want each one to have just a completely separate theme. So yeah, I mean, this is the Avengers, and it just felt right to just have one theme and then treat each character with instrumentation changes and maybe slow things down, speed things up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How did you approach form when because a 10 minute track that's a long track by most people's standards. How did you approach form? Like, were you scoring to like visuals, or was it you were just kind of conceptually trying to create this sort of track that would be representative of the story? Like, tell me a little bit more about that, because I think that 10-minute track is really interesting to hear more about.
Yeah, basically just I wanted to follow the story arc. So we start off in a heroic, quiet place where the Avengers, they're in San Francisco. It's A Day. They're bringing everyone together, and something happens, like something bad happens, and that just everything changes, and there's all this tension, and then we turn dark, and all of a sudden there's obstacles to overcome, and then the Avengers disband. And so it was basically going from a happy spot to something tragic to, oh, what are we going to do now? Tension, 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 and then action, adventure, combat mode. Like, I'm just thinking, okay, what can I create in this 10-minute suite? So I was just trying to tell the story of the whole game in this 10-minute suite, and then combat, and then resolution, or the combat ends and we don't know what's going to happen, and then tension rising again, and then to a climax, and then a resolution, and it ends in well, I'm not going to say how it's going to end, but there's a resolution at the end of the suite. So it's just conceptual. Oh, you're muted. Did I mute you by accident?
Nope, I did. There's always a resolution. There's a car driving by. I try to mute whenever there's street noise, or I whack the microphone stand. There's always a resolution one way or the other, right? Happy ending or otherwise.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And was that now was the 10-minute track, because I've only watched the gameplay. I haven't had my hands on it yet. And I got two small kids, so I may never get my hands on it. Um, but was that 10-minute track used in game, or like was that used for like that opening, like that whole opening story sequence? Is that kind of where that fits in?
It's used in spots. I think. Yeah, we it's. I gave it to Jack Grill, our audio director, and he's using it in different moments throughout the game. So,
Awesome.
yeah, it's
So kind of
definitely
make it into pieces and then
sure, exactly.
awesome. So was there any instrumentation or feel for any one of the characters that was trickier to nail than the other characters, or did you find that it was kind of easy because the characters are just so strong and like very different that it wasn't super tricky to identify any one of them?
God, I guess Kamala is probably difficult because what do we do with her? But then I just decided, okay, well, she feels like an outsider. She's in her bedroom. She's an Avengers fan, and she feels she just feels disconnected from the world. So I just thought, okay, well, let's. For some reason, electric piano with delays and reverb came to me, like just something internal, and 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 just more. Gosh, for some reason, electronic piano came to me for her. But then when she turns into Miss Marvel, it's just all out, just long brass, long string tones, just to match her limbs going crazy. Um, and that goes into superhero epic orchestration at that point. Um,
Awesome.
and for the most part, most of the Avengers, they get that treatment, the full bombastic orchestra treatment, whenever they're either fighting or utilizing their superhero powers.
Awesome.
She
Well,
was tough first, but we figured it out.
yeah, because she's sort of like the blank slate of the group
Yeah,
in terms of like context. A lot of people probably don't know who the character is yet,
right.
so it'll be their first experience with the character, which is kind of really cool that you get to sort of set the tone for a character who I imagine is going to be more prominent
Mhm.
going forward in the whole Marvel universe, digital or otherwise. So that's
Yeah.
really cool. Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit about like challenges for working on video games versus films, because I've got a lot of people in the community who have worked on smaller films, or they're trying to get in film first and then transition over to video games. What was like the trickiest thing for you, or is the trickiest thing for you in terms of the differences between those two worlds? And it could be in anything. It could be music, it could be business, it could be communicating with who you're working with.
Yeah.
The world is yours.
Gosh, I'm of the mindset that I don't see any difference between working on a film, TV show, or video game, or a play. It's just you're trying to help the story. What's cool? There are challenges and differences in games. You have to deal with uh, linear scoring, and then you have to deal with loops. You have to make sure things don't sound too repetitive or boring. But I think that gets taken care of hopefully in the implementation by a good audio director and audio team. And thankfully, I've only had great experiences in that regard, where I can kind of write a track from start to finish. If we're working on like something that needs to be looped, and I'm given good advice on how to add enough variety or give them enough tracks to let them implement more more choices for the character for the player. But I really don't see a difference. To me, it's just music helping a story. And maybe it could be that because the two big games that I've worked on are very cinematic in nature and feel like they could be movies, Avengers and
Yeah.
Rise of the Tomb Raider. So, um, so maybe that's why I feel that way. Who knows? Maybe if I work on like an indie game, I feel differently.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like video games right now, they're getting so close to just being an interactive movie, and some of them are
Yeah,
literally like Erica are like literally interactive movies.
yeah,
So That's very cool. Now, it's actually interesting because I usually get like one of two answers, and it's either like I see no difference or like they're completely different. So it's
Yeah,
really interesting to see which camp people end up in.
I know
Um,
there's video game composers who I respect for. No, there's a definite difference, and you need to play games to get it. And I don't necessarily agree, but you know,
See, I would feel, and having, being an organizer of resources for composers and not a working composer myself, I feel like one of the trickiest parts for me would be working with like film and TV where the visuals are locked and then making the music, grafting the music to that. I feel like that would be the trickiest thing where with games, there's almost like a cultural like understanding that like the at the base level, what everyone's been used to since game started is that things loop until something changes and then the loop changes.
right.
So there's always sort of that like safety net almost. Maybe that safety net's kind of disappearing or being shredded to bits now. But I feel like that would be the trickiest thing for me would be like really matching things up like second to second. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. So, but that's just me, I suppose. So another thing I wanted to ask you about is you study piano composition, and you're working on these scores that at the end of the day, there's just not a lot of piano in them because they're very big, orchestral, epic scores. Do you feel like your piano chops are like uniquely helping you still? Like I know obviously that having the chords in your hands and being able to quickly come up with ideas is obviously useful. But do you feel like being able to compose specifically just for like a solo piano has taught you things that are uniquely helpful to what you're doing now, if that makes sense?
Yes, I mean, I think the fact that I am a piano player helps just speed up the getting the ideas from my head into on piano and into the computer. Even like I don't have to be triggering a piano sound. I could be writing for strings or oboe, whatever percussion. And I think it definitely helps that I can quickly just play everything live into my DAW and just get it in there. So it doesn't. I don't necessarily have to compose with piano or for a piano. Um, but definitely, it helps that I can be quick with my fingers.
Let me maybe ask the question in a different way because I think I asked it poorly. The So one thing I like to think about when I hear a piece that really moves me, that I really love, that I feel like stands the test of time, a lot of times, no matter what instrumentation or production, it can be um, sort of a litmus test for me is if it can be simplified and arranged for a solo piano and still be very satisfying. To me, that is a huge indicator of sort of musical success. Obviously, in games, that's not always appropriate. Sometimes you have to have more atmospheric stuff. But I'm kind of curious, having composed specifically for piano, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like, having to just written for piano much more extensively than most people, do you feel like that has informed your composition style in terms of, the different like foundational elements that you bring in and start with? For example, like focus on melody, things like that.
Yeah, I definitely think I run. I can. It can be a crutch that I try to base. I try as much as I can write, compose with other instruments or
Oh,
compose away from the piano because my hands will go to the same chords and kind of play the same figures that I'm used to. So
interesting.
yeah, I need to kind of just grab either I don't know violin, guitar, something that I'm not used to holding, playing, and see if I can come up with melodies that way. But for the most part, I try to come up with tunes or away from the piano, and then quickly record it on my iPhone and then transcribe it somehow. Um, but yeah,
Awesome.
it'd be a crutch to just always write on the piano. So I try not
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I remember that I did we run a composition challenge through the website where composers sign up and they do new music every day. It used to be for 21 days straight, which was a beast of a challenge. And we were doing that every 3 months for a couple of years. But the first time I did it, I was doing it at the piano, and I was kind of coming up with probably similarly sounding things until I went and I had to visit my parents. And while I was there, I still wanted to like broadcast every day what I was doing, and she's like, I'll just hum, I'll do something, whatever, I'll just figure it out. And I forgot my guitar here, and the only instrument I had there was an old like beat up classical guitar that was missing two of the strings, and I hadn't touched since college. But I came up with something that I really enjoyed. It was so different than the other stuff I had been writing over the challenge because now melodically I was forced to just like the range of what I could whistle, which is not great. And then and then I had to make the harmonically interesting things with only like three or four strings at a time.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
was
Are you a guitar player?
I am, yeah. That was like sort of how I cut my teeth musically.
Mhm. Yeah, to me, the guitar is so foreign to me that I don't know what chords I'm playing. I mean, I do know certain chords, D, G, C, but it's better for me to just kind of mess around on the guitar and come up with different chords and ideas because I don't know what I'm doing, and I think it's a good way to write.
I know like the basic chords and the bar chords, but largely I don't know what I'm doing on the guitar either because the people I chose the people who inspired me to learn the guitar, like Dave Matthews, John
Mhm.
Mayer, like Dave Matthews just does weird chord shapes and they're just not conventional chords sometimes. And then like John Mayer just does such complicated, jazz voice things like that. And my small teenage musical brain just could not digest that information. So largely I don't. I've got all these different weird shapes in my hand, but I really don't know what they do. Like I haven't spent the time studying what they are and how they interlock.
Got it.
But so I'm keeping myself blissfully ignorant, I guess, in a way there. So uh, this is sort of a weird time where we're interviewing where we're in the middle of this pandemic thing, which is a big bummer. And like we were saying earlier, it's forced us all to stay separate and connect in different ways. Um, but I also see similarities in terms of like people who don't live near those city hubs and the networking sort of reality that they've been faced with. They can't necessarily afford to just hop on a plane and fly all over the place to different conventions, things like that. So I'm wondering, um, how have you stayed connected with other people? Like, are there any tips? I guess maybe a better way to ask it: tips or strategies for networking when you can't go to those hubs, or when you can't, in this case, be near other people that you might be able to pass along to people who are starting out.
Yeah, I know. I was looking forward to GDC this year, and also like different like Comic Con. It would have been great to go to. I've never been, and but I understand that like they're happening online, right? Virtually,
Yep.
or is GDC happening this month, or do you
Oh,
know?
oh, geez. Now I need to. Now I'm
I just
gonna.
I think this morning, but I mean,
Yeah, it ended. That was at the beginning of the month, so we missed it.
right.
Oh
So
well.
I, mean, I guess that's what we got to do. We got to like, thankfully, these festivals or these conferences are now being hosted online, and I guess we just got to go online and try to connect some way. I hope COVID's gonna go away eventually, and we'll come like 2021. Hopefully, will be a great year where we're
Yep.
all see each other again. And so, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I hope things will return back to normal where we can go to conferences and meet people face to face. But maybe now is a good opportunity to write a lot of music um, and try to just meet other game developers, filmmakers, go to forums, just try to do everything virtually. I don't know how. Yeah, I I haven't met anyone new online, so I have my people that I've been working with. So yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. It is a weird time. I
Yeah,
bet, and like I said, I mentioned like the people who live in much more rural places than
yeah,
Boston or Los Angeles are probably like nothing new here, folks. But or not to overgeneralize, but in terms of
right.
the networking part, not a whole lot has changed. But It's tricky. It's tricky to even stay connected with the people you already know.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you, you work on different, you obviously work on film and games. Was that like a conscious, I want to score all sorts of different things, TV, film, and games, or was that a sort of the opportunities came about situation? Do you feel like composers have to be versatile enough to do all three in order to make a good living?
Um, I think it was a conscious decision to want to work on everything, on anything that just needs music. Um, I've written music for plays. Written music for dance. My my goal was always to be a film composer, but of course, I grew up playing games, so the fact that I get to write music for games is amazing. So I think it's a good thing to kind of keep your options open and take an opportunity if it presents itself, whether it's film, TV, or a video game. And it helps to be passionate about what you're writing for. I love watching movies and TV shows and playing games, so it's like I love consuming content. I imagine many composers, up and coming composers, do as well. I don't think people just like playing video games or just like watching TV or movies. So yeah, it's good to keep your options open. For sure.
Now, the next couple of questions I have are kind of unusual questions or hypothetical questions. So sort of take it that with a grain of salt. Things are, obviously in the gaming industry and any technology based industry, things change a lot quickly. But I'm curious if if I were to ask you, like, what is like the one of like the best resources you have acquired over your career that cost you less than $100, be that a book, be that an instrument, be that a course, like whatever. What comes to mind that really pops out for folks who are starting out and maybe their resources are really limited?
Ooh, so tough. Gosh. I guess, are there any DAWs that cost less than $100 out there? I mean,
I mean, there are a couple that there are some that are free,
yeah.
but no. I usually like to ask this because I get some weird answers. Like you get the like I got this violin on eBay for $75. You get that kind of stuff, but then what was it? The automaton is like one of them. Like, all sorts of some people were like, this book, that's it. This soundtrack meant changed the way I blah blah blah. So
Gosh, it's so personal. I
yeah.
can't. What have I bought for less than $100? I bought this musical toy for less than $100, but I don't think it'll change your life. Um,
What is that?
It's a company called Brand New Noise by Richard Upchurch. I think he's a guy in Dallas. And hello, that's not working. La 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 la.
Well, what you have to do now.
Yeah,
You have to find a way to use it.
I know exactly.
That's the
But
new
yeah,
challenge.
um, gosh, I mean, there's so many. Gosh, I just anything to just get your idea down, recorded, is. Gosh, I wish I had a better answer.
What about on the business side of things? Because this is obviously, you can't do this for a living and neglect the business side of things. Is there anything like any books or resources or pieces of software even that you use that you're just like, yep, that would suck if that was gone now?
All right. Gosh, you know what? The only thing I can think of is free is like websites or forums like vicontrol.com is great, or even the Gear Sluts forums. Just go online.
Oh, I haven't heard that one in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Like every once in a while, I'll just go on and just I need advice on something, um, and or tips and tricks on what plugin or what plugin or sound to. That's really interesting these days. But I think things are free, so take advantage of them.
It's a
Everything.
lot of free. That's almost like I feel like a detriment sometimes because there's just so much stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, like if I were starting out right now, I'd be like, all right, I need to find all the free things,
right,
and then I'd end up with this huge collection of free stuff,
right.
and then I'd have to figure out then I would have too many choices, and then I'd have to go through that whole process.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but awesome. And then this other question I have um, is sort of like a starting over question. If I had to have you start over in your career today, um, and all you had with you was you had all your knowledge and your skills, but resource wise and connections wise, all you had was $500 and a laptop. So you have your personal network has just vanished overnight. And how do you start over? What would you be your strategy to try to get your foot in the door in 2020, which is way different than probably someone would have to do in 2019? But
No, I mean the way that I've gotten work was through friends. It seems through people I know, because it seems it makes sense that your friends would share the same interests, and you naturally gravitate towards people who are musicians. Hopefully, if you're in school, that's a great place to. Well, everything's virtual now. Everything's online. Uh, um, I,
after those first 2 weeks, anyways, it
yeah,
seems.
exactly. I would just try to somehow meet uh, people who are creating content that you want to write music for, and just say, hey, what do you need? I can help you. Like, I want to write music for you. Um, that's how it's worked for me. Just so, but it's a strange. These are strange times, so it's tough to say what I would do right now during COVID. But I think all I would do is just write music and put it out there somehow, and just try to find people that need music.
Now, when you found those people that need music, would you be like at the start, obviously, first people you're scoring for, would you be working for free or would you be trying to work for a fee?
I am a big fan of working for free. I don't think, yeah, I think because you're gaining experience, you know, if there's money, if there's payment is in the form of beer or food or chocolate cake or something, like just
Or all three?
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've worked for free so many times. I've demoed for so many things. I still work for free. I'm demoing for a project and I'm paying out of my pocket to record a live musician. Um, yeah, and it just makes you. I think you become quicker and quicker as a composer. The more you work at it, the more you write. So it's never for free. I think it's going to a good cause.
Got it. So
Track,
instead of thinking of the money, you're
yeah,
thinking of the investment in the relationships and in the skill sets that you're building and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. But I understand that you also got to pay your rent and feed your family, so it's a tough balance. But hey, you can work your day job and then write music at night if you're really passionate about it. You'll make it work somehow.
Yeah, those darn kids, they got to keep eating apparently. If you don't feed them and water them every now and then, they get really upset. Awesome. Well, we've covered a lot of stuff, and I really appreciate, like I said, uh, talking about Marvel's Avengers. It's been super exciting to watch this game unfold,
Yeah,
and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for the game. And I just really appreciate your time and just sharing some of your journey and some of your advice with people who are trying to follow in your footsteps and work on some of these big properties that they've been in love with since they were kids, or just be a part of a larger project and work their way into one industry and then sidestep into another. So thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
yeah. Thank you for having me. This is fun. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, that is it for Bobby today. I'm going to sign off here, but please feel free to share this interview because Bobby's awesome, and check out Marvel's Avengers soundtrack, and please, please, please enjoy and have fun with your favorite superhero.